Our students can be geniuses, and I'm going to prove it. So I made this video because I want to shatter misconceptions about intelligence, or IQ as we know it. And I want to inspire you to see genius capabilities in every student that you have. And I want to bring massive amounts of evidence. It impacts our expectations of students. And if we don't believe that our students are capable of being geniuses, especially the students who are struggling, have special needs, they have misbehavior, they're, chronic absences, they're tough for you to support, they're difficult to connect with, etc., then you're not going to invest much energy. And the research is clear that teachers invest more time, energy, patience, support, and they even perceive misbehavior more positively when they believe that their students are capable of high achievement. This also will improve our ability to teach the growth mindset and all these other SEL skills if we truly believe that our students can improve in their own behavior and all these amazing soft skills. If we believe there's unlimited growth potential, then we're going to put more energy, right? We're not going to think that there's this block of, limited genetic potential. No, the potential is infinite, and I'm going to prove that to you. Also, this is going to impact our own personal development as teachers. If we believe that there are limits to our own intelligence and our own growth, then when things get tough, our students misbehave, there's low test scores, then we'll blame the students, blame the parents, blame the government, blame class sizes, blame the education system. We're going to make excuses and complain rather than improve our own teaching skills. So if we believe that we can be geniuses ourselves as teachers, then we're going to put more effort in learning. And we're going to know that there's going to be solutions to these challenges we have in the classroom. Let me talk about neuroplasticity. I love the research on this because it means that the brain changes. The brain can grow in the size of certain brain areas that are used more, and new brain cells can be formed, and new connections among brain cells, which we call neurons, can grow, and they could get stronger. And so there's evidence that practicing high-level cognitive skills causes changes in brain activation and structural changes. Literally, the brain changes. So what does that mean? That practicing things like problem solving, decision-making, right? Analyzing complex critical thinking, solving complex math problems, right? Learning very dense material and pattern recognition. All these complex skills of reading and writing and math, etc., can really change our brain. And so just 2 hours of cognitive training shows changes in the brain, just 2 hours. So think about it, 2 hours of reading, 2 hours of writing some complex writing on some topics that are complex to you. Whatever it is, 2 hours of this really deliberate training and practice and learning is going to change your brain. And so here's a little video clip of 2 nerve cells, 2 neurons, or again, 2 brain cells that are working. Whenever you're learning something, they're connecting and they're forming new patterns. And look at these 2 neurons that are going to connect. They're looking for each other. And this is what happens when you learn. New connections are made, and these little extensions called dendrites help the cells connect and transmit information. And so this is how memories are formed. This is how learning happens, and it happens in our brain when you learn things, especially, things that are difficult and challenging, or just any new thing that you learn. So this is crazy. That means that at birth, we have a certain amount of brain cells, but look by age 6, what happens to the developing child? Notice how many more neurons or brain cells there are. There's definitely more dense connections, more brain cells are formed. And why? Why does this happen? Well, because the child is learning. The child is curious. It's curious about its environment. It wants to play. It wants to talk. It wants to learn language so it can communicate with adults and do more than just say, hey, I need to eat, sleep, pee or poop, right? They want to form connections with the world. And so they're discovering the world is their playground. So they're learning, they're curious, they're thirsting for knowledge, and they want to see where they reside in the world. And this is also showing the different stages. And notice again, from infancy all the way till adults, 30 to 60 years of age, we have a very dense connection of neurons. But then what happens at 65? And this doesn't happen for everyone, but people who retire at 65 start seeing a decline in the amount of neurons or brain cells, and also the connections start to prune or decay. Why? Because what happens at that time is that we retire and we start sitting back, we relax, we think, hey, our work is done. I don't need to learn anything. I just want to relax on a beach, sip margaritas all day, and just travel and not learn anything new and not really need to challenge my brain anymore. So what happens? If you don't use it, you lose it. That's what happens to our brain. And so that's the challenge, is to continue to work. Even if you retire, you're continuing to contribute, learn new languages. All this is possible. I'm going to show you how. London taxi drivers also show neuroplasticity. Now, they have this intensive 2-year training program where they have to learn thousands of routes in London to get certified. So what happens is they measure their brain and they look at it through these different brain imaging scans before and after, and they notice that this area called the hippocampus, which is in charge of learning and memory, it gets thicker, it grows in structure. So that's just evidence that our brain can change according to new learning experiences. Also pretty cool is, I always get the question, what about students with learning differences? I have students with autism. I have some students with, special needs. I have students who have ADHD. I have students who have audio processing delay. I have students with Down syndrome. Well, guess what? This is promising, because this blew my mind when I really found this out, is that a lot of people have these learning challenges, but that doesn't limit us to being geniuses. So Albert Einstein had memory issues, dyslexia. He had late speech development. People thought that he was just not going to do anything in life and that he was going to be stuck and not intelligent. But he was one of the greatest scientists of all time. We know Michael Phelps. He had attention deficit hyperactive disorder, ADHD, but 18 Olympic gold medals. Steven Spielberg had dyslexia, which again, it's difficulty reading text. And he's a legendary filmmaker, and he has overcome his dyslexia. Justin Timberlake had ADHD and OCD. But again, famous music artist winning a lot of Grammys. Richard Branson had dyslexia, and he was the only person to find 8 companies that are billion-dollar valuations. Amadeus Mozart, Elon Musk on the autism spectrum, Asperger's. And then I always get asked too, what about students with a Down syndrome? They have an extra chromosome. Don't they have these developmental delays and they're not going to ever reach past a certain IQ? No, it's not true. Look at this guy, for example, Hugh Yezu. He had Down syndrome, famous orchestra conductor. Pablo Pineda, Down syndrome, actor, writer, and university professor. Judith Scott is a world-famous art genius. And we have Angela Bachelor, who's a city councilwoman, all with Down syndrome. So, again, shattering the expectations that we have of them. And then the genius secret. How do you become a genius? And I have 2 bookshelves, literally, because one of my passions is to know that, or to learn the abilities of geniuses and how they got there. And it shows that anyone could be a genius. And there's 4 rules, or 4 things they follow. They're obsessively curious. And they're curious, that makes them want to learn. That makes them want to be persistent and tenacious and study hours, because they're so passionate and curious about what they're learning. And they're always learning. If they don't know the answer to a question, they're going to look it up. If they're in a conversation and they hear a new word, they'll ask, hey, what is that word? Oh, what is that place in the world called? Hey, can you explain that concept to me? I'm new to this. All right. So there's no fear of failure or fear of sounding incompetent. They don't care. They're so curious that it matters more that they get the answer than how they appear. And so they're going to be driven to learn. And Einstein even said it best. I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious. And then they also have a deep purpose, meaning they want to make a huge impact. They want to change the world, a higher calling beyond themselves. Elon Musk, whether you like his politics or not, we must agree that he is a genius. And so his passion to colonize Mars, to have these energy efficient systems and cars, to link our brains with AI and technology to advance our species, and so that we can become an intergalactic civilization, colonizing different solar systems. That's a deep purpose that he has, which drives them to work hard. And that's the next thing, is the idea that the greater your purpose, the bigger your purpose, the more you have to become. If you want to be a good teacher, then you're not going to invest that much in personal development. You're just going to wait for the next PD that your site offers. You're not going to go beyond it. You're going to say, oh, well, my work ends at 3:00. No, if you have a deep purpose and you want to be great, you're going to be going to conferences, workshops. You're going to sign up. You're not going to wait for the budget at your school to, be approved. You're going to do your own professional development. You're going to research articles, observe the best teachers. You're going to go outside of your district to look for who are the national teachers of the year and learn from them, buy books, go to seminars, do whatever it takes. Again, depending on how great you want to be. Why? Because something deep is really driving you. You want to change communities. You want our students to be geniuses so they can go and really change the future. And so you have this deep, compelling, drive to bring equity to different communities, especially those that have been underserved. Whatever your purpose is that's greater than you, that's what drives you. And then also the growth mindset is that they don't have this fear of failure or mistakes. Matter of fact, there's no such thing. These failures or mistakes or setbacks are just results that are stepping stones. They're not setbacks, but setups. They're learning opportunities that propel them forward to their goals. So they don't fear failure. They don't fear, rejection. They don't fear asking for help. They don't fear having somebody come into their classroom and observe them and give them feedback, because they know in the end they're going to learn from these experiences. They're also driven by this insane work ethic. Why? Because of all these combined things. They're obsessively curious. They have a deep purpose. They have a growth mindset. They know with work and effort, they can get smarter and smarter. So they invest what Anders Ericsson calls 10,000 hours or more to become world class. That's what's projected to take 10,000 hours to become world class. And it's based on a study on violinists who've become world class. On average, these super prodigies have invested 10,000 hours. So there's no magic or genius or genetic, thing here. It's just tons and tons of hours of practice, which approximates out to 10 years of 2.75 hours per day, or 5 years of 8 hours per day of deliberate practice and work for about 5 days a week. So that's the genius secret. And for a long time, they thought IQ cannot improve. What is IQ? It's a measure of intelligence. It's not the only intelligence. We know that Howard Gardner has this theory of multiple intelligence, right? That spatial ability, that being musically inclined, having interpersonal skills like social skills, that's another intelligence. So there's other intelligences. But what I'm trying to demystify is the popular one, IQ, cognitive ability. So IQ, is called intelligence quotient. And again, it's designed supposedly to measure your ability to think and reason. And it's supposed to give you a general idea of how well you can do the following: solve problems, understand concepts, learning new things. And it's usually tested with a standard test of different questions that measure for this. And what's fascinating is for many years, people said, oh, IQ is static. It's fixed. You can't do anything. It's just genetic. No, the research is clear. Fluid memory, which was once thought never to be possible to improve. Fluid memory is just this idea that it's called learning on your feet or learning on the spot. And it involves a lot of complex skills. But it's the idea that if I were to teach you something new that you never heard about, and I teach you this new concept and give you some new knowledge and skills, can you apply that to solve new problems on the spot without relying on old past knowledge? So it requires working memory, problem-solving skills. It also requires just fast processing ability. So they think of it as like a processing ability. Like, what is the CPU speed of your brain? And it can improve with training. The more you train, the more fluid memory you can improve and achieve. Computer exercises improve attentional control and performance on task. And there's just tons of evidence. I'm not going to go into all of these. I literally could have cited 30 studies, but just remember, training boosts your IQ. To me, this was really interesting that computer programs or specific training protocols using games and manipulatives can really boost your IQ by up to 15 points. And that to me is fascinating. We also know that your environment matters. IQ dramatically improves with changes in family environments. You could have one family where there's a lot of love and nurturing and a lot of, it's okay that you try and make mistakes. You're not going to get punished. You're supported. There's a lot of discussion. Your parents read to you, talk to you. There's a lot of games, learning games. There's books around the house, things of that nature. And you have a very nurturing environment full of all these new words that you come in contact with. And so you're going to learn more in these environments where it's nurturing with this great information and learning opportunities. Also, work environments where you work. Do you work in a company where you're complaining, everybody's venting, everyone's just blaming, and you're not encouraged to share your ideas? Everybody's acting like they have it all together, so nobody wants to learn from each other. People are like very competitive. Well, then you're not going to grow there. But if you go to another environment where it is nurturing and you feel safe to contribute ideas, to admit your weaknesses, to ask for help, you don't feel afraid to tell the boss, hey, I don't know the answer, or the boss also is vulnerable as well. Well, you're going to learn more in these environments that are more nurturing. Also, historical environments refers to this concept of the Flynn effect. It just means that on average, every decade, our IQ improves as a whole population by 3 to 5 IQ points every decade. And this is really for developed countries. Why? Because our nutrition is improving. Also, we have better prenatal programs. People know more things to do in terms of parenting to ensure their students or their children are more successful. We have better education systems. We have more access to technology, social media, internet. There's more learning games and opportunities. We just have better teaching and learning methods. And again, learning is accessible through the internet, right? And so we're increasing at that rate. And so we're just getting smarter as a population in general. Styles of parenting. Again, you have a parent that's more nurturing. They promote the growth mindset versus one that's more fixed minded, and you get more punished whenever you make mistakes. Well, we know that the growth minded parent that is more authoritative, not authoritarian, is going to be, raising children that are going to be more successful. And then again, there's shifts in levels of schooling. And this is what I mean. 1 year of additional schooling improves IQ by up to 5 points. So think about every year that you add onto your education, potentially could be 5 points, up to 10 points, depending on how much you're learning in that year, right? And what type of work you're doing. Also, teachers matter. Teachers remain the single most significant contributor to student achievement, an effect greater than that of parents, funding, curriculum, even class size, peers, entire schools, or even poverty. So we can outperform all those factors. So we're the most important thing. And that is a big point. We do have a big impact. I know we can get caught up in saying, oh, I wish I had more money. And yeah, all those things are true. And I wish I had smaller class sizes, and I wish I had more support. And I get it. But still, the research shows, even without that, you can still push students to high levels of performance, no matter how poor or behind they are in grade levels. The teacher's mindset predicts student success even more than student IQ, socioeconomic status, or reading ability. And check this out. This is fascinating. Above average teachers, what does that mean? Teachers who get 1.5 years or more of student gains per school year can completely erase the academic effects of poverty in just 5 years. In other words, if a student, again, whose grade level's behind in reading, math, and writing, or whatnot, if that student has 5 teachers in a row, every year they have a teacher that's a high performer for 5 straight years, you close the achievement gap, and they can perform as well as their affluent peers. That's fascinating. And then when teachers offer strong instruction, so good teaching strategies, and they also offer emotional support, empathy, they really connect with their students, then students from low-income families perform equally to their higher-income peers. That's fascinating. Teacher mindset is also critical. I mean, there's evidence that even more than IQ, socioeconomic status, or reading ability, the teacher's mindset predicts student success. Also, teachers lower expectations for Black and Latino students leads to lower achievement, and that's been replicated a lot of times. So we need to really combat these biases that do exist out there. Lower expectations, because if you have low expectations because you see your students that are poor, they don't have enough materials, you see that there might not be as much parent engagement, these lower expectations that we form in our mind are going to limit the students eventually. There's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're not going to give them as much support as we do to the students that are, are more well off. And so we really need to shatter these misconceptions, because students who live in poverty can perform at genius levels, and that's what I'm presenting to you. Teachers with a growth mindset boost academic performance, and that's known. And we can actually teach these strong mindsets. We have all these case studies. Jaime Escalante, a teacher in Los Angeles, specifically Garfield High School, he took, again, low-income, majority Latino students and had them perform well consecutively on the AP Calculus exam for many years in a row, always outperforming the more affluent, rich schools. And so that shows that, again, with your students, anything is possible. It doesn't matter where they come from, their background, or how many grade levels behind. We can catch them up and have them succeed at ultra levels. Ron Clark did the same. There's a great book on him, and a story, or actually movie with starring the late Matthew Perry on it, and how he uses these innovative techniques, and he'll wrap writing lessons and reading lessons. And he'll also, he designed a school to look like Hogwarts. And so he brings in Harry Potter and all these fascinating, cool methodologies to really engage students. And students perform well in the top 5 to 10% in the country. Marva Collins started a prep school in Chicago, and she had very rigorous and demanding curriculum expectations for majority African-American students of low-income communities. And they excelled at the highest levels. And also Erin Gruwell, she really inspired her students to be these amazing writers. And so, again, her story is captured in the movie The Freedom Writers. And also, I'm including myself and you as well, because you have these amazing success stories. And so don't be shy about it. You've done miraculous things, and you know what you're capable of doing. You're able to help a struggling student achieve at high levels. You've done it, right? So just remind yourself of that. You've already done that. And so an example, again, that I'll use is when I was working at Animo Leadership Charter High School, which is a Title I school in Lenox, California. Majority, 98.5% of students were on free and reduced lunch. And I was a grade level leader, the science department chair, and I led professional development school-wide. And I rallied several teacher leaders there, and we helped really turn around the school, and it became the 23rd best high school in the country, according to the U.S. News report. And so, again, that's just an example to impress you? No. To impress upon you the idea that this is possible. Again, there's stories, and these aren't the only ones, right? There's tons of stories out there that I'm sure you've heard of and that you've done yourself. So there are no quick learners. People think, well, what about DNA? Aren't there just some kids that learn faster? No. There's a great study that really pointed this out, that students learn at the same rate if they're given the right tools. And it was a study that analyzed the learning rates of, check this out, 7,000 children and adults. And they used instructional software or these educational, playing games, video games. And the researchers could find no evidence that some students were progressing faster than others. And even Ken Codinger, the lead researcher, said, students are starting at different places, right? And they're ending in different places, but they're making progress at the same rate. So some have a head start than others, but they're all learning at the same speed. So what does that mean? Again, that there's no such thing as this quick learner concept. Of course, you can learn skills that'll help you learn faster, but it basically says that our brains function the same. Just some kids know more strategies than others. That's it. The benefits of starting early. By age 3, children from affluent families had heard approximately 30 million more words than children from low-income families. They processed the vocabulary more efficiently. So these students are read to, they're talked to more by their parents. There's more games at home. There's more books at home. Again, students encounter these learning opportunities, these rich language learning opportunities that students in poor areas don't have the access to. But early childhood intervention programs really mitigate this achievement gap. So the idea is that the achievement gap doesn't start in kindergarten. It starts in the first 3 years. And there are programs that we can do to implement to really help that. And there's thousands of studies. I didn't want to include them all, but there's a bunch right here, right? So this other concept that geniuses are, made by genetics. No, they're actually made, and there's a mentor or an instructor that guides them to be geniuses. And so geniuses are not self-made by themselves. And here's a great example of this. The 3 Polgar sisters, Judith, Suzanne, and Sophia, were raised by their chess-playing father. And he homeschooled them, and he really trained them with a mission of making them champions. And all 3 of them became chess prodigies, with Judith achieving the title of chess grandmaster at the age of 15. Again, this is the youngest ever at the time. And to be a chess master, if you know anything about chess, that's a huge sign of IQ and intelligence. And so, again, we can do the same thing with our students, have a plan and a mindset to make sure that they all become geniuses. That's what this parent did. Also, this has been repeated so many times. Boris Sidis was a psychologist and social scientist, and he made these experiments to really help his son have the highest IQ ever obtained. And just for comparison, IQ, Einstein had an IQ of 160. And again, genius is 140 and above. And we know what Einstein did. Isaac Newton, they call him the father of physics, classical physics, the laws of motion. He invented calculus on a dare. I mean, this guy is a genius, IQ of 190. Well, William Sidis had an IQ of 260. And again, the father had a plan. I'm going to make my child a genius. And we should think of that in the same way in the classroom. Another example, there was this great book called The Education of Carl Whitty. So the father also, Carl Whitty, he was a German pastor and professor, and he started documenting everything that he did with his son because he was on a mission to make his son a genius, and that's what happened. And he wrote this great book. I mean, his son was fluent in multiple languages by age 7. He entered the university at age 10, and check this out, he got a doctorate by age 12. So again, we hear all these stories. This guy, his name is Suburno, and he was a college professor at age 7. And we have all sorts of piano prodigies, violinists, different subjects and content and fields that their geniuses are appearing on talent shows now and stuff. So we hear about them all the time. And so hundreds of geniuses and prodigies are being born, but I'm going to say they're being made. And another idea is this we talk about in sports. We know Tiger Woods, he was trained by his dad as a toddler. So getting a head start definitely helps. We know Richard Williams, and a great movie portrayed by, Will Smith played Richard Williams, the father of Venus and Serena Williams, in a movie. I think it was called Prince Richard or Prince Williams. I'm not sure what it was called, but in that movie, it shows how the dad created a manual, a handbook, detailing out what the practices would look like and how he would help his daughters become one of the most powerful, talented, famous, tennis players with these amazing abilities because he had that vision. And then we know Michael Jordan, his older brother Larry Jordan, would always beat him one-on-one. So that was his mentor. And he started early playing basketball. I think he started around 8 or 9, but he was trying to beat his brother, and that really pushed him to the next level. And he would later be coached by the great Dean Smith at North Carolina. And there he learned the fundamentals, which is why everybody looks at Michael Jordan's fancy dunks, but they don't know that he's fundamentally sound. That's why he's so amazing. And then also, we know Simone Biles started young at age 6 and had these world-class instructors. So starting early and having instructors, that's like really the secret, okay? So I really want us to go beyond just genetics. right? And then also Leonardo da Vinci was apprenticed, and he started around the age of 14. So he was trained by a world-class artist himself. And everybody's thinking, oh, Einstein, these genes, he was a genius, he had these genetics. No, well, at age 6 or at age 5, his dad gave him a compass. And so Einstein was like, oh man, this compass is moving us in this direction. How is that possible? What are the laws governing this? And then his father had this electrical company. So he would sit Einstein on his lap and show him all these tools, all these gadgets, all these electrical devices, and these light bulbs. And Einstein just had a learning lab at an early age. So this, again, nurturing environment, having a mentor, his father, teaching him these things, it's no surprise you become a genius with tons of hours of practice. And we also know that older brains can learn just as quickly as younger brains. There's this concept called the critical period, and it was believed, again, this age where in your early years from 0 to 3, that's when your brain is a sponge. And that's when you have to learn languages, because after that, oh no, you can't learn as fast. Well, that's been debunked. That critical learning period where we're sponges went from 0 to 3, then it got extended from 0 to 8, and then 0 to 18. And now it's 0 to 100, meaning that you can learn at any age as fast as a child. If you are insanely curious about your subject area, if there's a sense of urgency, you're passionate and you have a purpose behind learning it, and you're obsessed about learning it. Okay, so just comes down to how many hours. Remember the 10,000 hour rule? That's it, the investment, the dedication. Adults learn language to fluency nearly as well as children. And again, there was this huge study with 670,000 native and non-native learners. And they found that around age 18, they felt that, okay, you can learn as well a new language as a 3-year-old. But then from these 670,000, they found 2,000 that were above age 50. So 2,000 participants that performed, again, these were from 50, age 60, 70, 80. And those 2,000, older adults performed as well or better than the 18-year-olds, better than the 9-year-olds, better than the 3-year-olds in learning language. So in other words, there's no limit to being a super learner. At any age, we can do it. And again, we know that lifestyle matters, that having mentally stimulating activities, doing mental exercises, reading, constantly having discussions, a regular aerobic exercise, all of these boost our intelligence over the years. And here's a crazy story. So Dr. To Hong Kang became a lawyer. He got his law degree at age 71. And this is fascinating here. Dr. Bronwyn Herbert got her her PhD, her doctorate in social work at age 91. Can you believe that? And then this gentleman here, Dr. Howard Tucker, is practicing at the age of 102. And to be a medical doctor at that age, no, he's actually a surgeon. And that means he's required to learn constantly in order to keep his license. So he's always learning. So again, there's no limit to when we can learn. So this is important for us as educators. We can always become a genius. It doesn't matter what age you are as a teacher. You can learn new skills. So remember that. So what if we all truly believed our students could be geniuses? How would that impact our actions? I'll let you reflect on that.